the examination hall of the Galactic Academy fell silent, as instructor Zixither's crystalline form shimmered with what could only be described as academic indignation. His multiple sensory stalks quivered as he held Jesse's test paper. Between two of his delicate manipulator appendages, "Incorrect," the Valkyrian announced, his voice resonating through the translation nodes embedded in every student's desk. "Completely, fundamentally incorrect." Jesse sat calmly in his chair, the only human among the 200 students in advanced spatial mathematics. Around him, beings from 47 different species watched with varying degrees of curiosity and concern. Some, like the gelatinous morphids, rippled with sympathetic distress. Others, like the proud ascendants with their glowing neural crowns, seemed pleased to see the upstart human finally stumble. "You have failed this examination," Zixither continued, his tone carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "The method you have employed does not exist in any recognized mathematical framework. Across known space, this," he gestured at Jesse's work with something approaching disgust, "is nonsense." Nellie, Jesse's human friend sitting 3 rows behind him, felt her stomach drop. She had helped Jesse study for weeks, running through problems in their shared dormitory, both of them struggling to adapt to mathematical systems that had evolved across hundreds of alien civilizations. Jesse had worked harder than anyone she knew. Jesse, however, remained still. His dark eyes never left the instructor's shimmering form. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "Turn the page." The words hung in the air like a challenge wrapped in politeness. Zixither's form flickered, the Valkyrian equivalent of a double take. "Excuse me." "Turn the page, instructor," Jesse repeated, his tone respectful but firm. "I'm not finished." A murmur rippled through the hall. Several students leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused intently on the exchange. Nellie found herself holding her breath. Zixither's stalks rotated, examining Jesse with renewed scrutiny. "There is no need. Your methodology is on page 1. Jesse interrupted gently. "The answer is on page 2. For a long moment, the instructor didn't move. Then, with deliberate slowness, he turned the test paper over. The silence that followed was absolute. Nellie couldn't see the page from her position, but she watched Zixither's form cycle through several color shifts: confusion, surprise, and finally something that looked like shock. His sensory stalks bent closer to the paper, then pulled back, then closer again. "This is..." The instructor's voice had lost its authoritative edge. "How did you..." Jesse leaned back in his chair. "May I explain?" Zixither managed a gesture that approximated a nod. Though his attention never left the paper, the problem asked us to calculate the subspace fold coordinates for a vessel traveling from the Andromeda Relay to the Triangulum Beacon. Jesse began, his voice carrying to every corner of the now silent hall. "The traditional Valkyrian method, which we've been studying, uses multi-dimensional tensor calculus. It's elegant. It's proven. It works. Then why?" Zixither's voice was strained. "Did you not use it?" Jesse smiled slightly. "Because it takes 17 minutes to solve using that method. I timed it. The problem specified that a ship's navigation I would need to calculate this in real time. During an emergency course correction." Nellie's eyes widened. She remembered that problem. She had spent 30 minutes on it herself. "Humans," Jesse continued, "have been working with limited computational resources for most of our history. We couldn't always brute force solutions with elegant mathematics. Sometimes we had to find shortcuts approximations that were good enough to save lives, even if they weren't theoretically perfect." He stood up, and Nellie noticed that every being in the room was now focused on him. "On page 1, I used what we call a Taylor series expansion combined with numerical integration methods that predate our space age by centuries. It's messy. It's not as beautiful as your tensor calculus, but it gives an answer that's accurate to within 0.003%. In under 90 seconds, Jesse walked to the instructor's desk, pointing at the second page without touching it. "On page 2, I showed my verification using your traditional method. The answers match, but in a real emergency, where 17 minutes means the difference between a successful fold and materializing inside a star." He let the implication hang. Zixither's form had shifted to a deep purple color. Nellie had learned indicated deep contemplation. Around the hall, she could see other instructors who had been monitoring the examination, now clustering near the doorways, their attention fixed on Jesse's paper. Your species is barely 2 centuries into interstellar travel. One of the ascendants spoke up from the back, his voice dripping with skepticism. You presume to lecture us on mathematics? Jesse turned to face the speaker, his expression neutral. Not lecture, offer perspective. Every species brings something unique to the Galactic Academy. The Valkyrians brought tensor calculus that revolutionized fold space theory. The Ascendants contributed quantum-locked encryption. The Morphids taught us fluid dynamic computation that saved millions in station construction costs. He gestured around the room. Humans, we bring the math of desperation. The calculations you make when you don't have quantum computers or centuries of refined theory. When all you have is paper, determination, and the knowledge that if you don't figure something out in the next few minutes, people die. The silence that followed was different now, thoughtful rather than shocked. Zixither's form cycled through several colors before settling on a warm amber. I need to reconsider this examination. His voice held none of its earlier certainty. And perhaps consult with the curriculum committee. He looked directly at Jesse. This method of yours, this good enough mathematics, it would need to be verified. Tested against multiple scenarios. I welcome the scrutiny, Jesse said simply. As the instructor dismissed the class, Nellie rushed to Jesse's side. Around them, students from dozens of species were clustering in small groups, talking rapidly in their various languages. Jesse. That was, she couldn't find the words. He grinned at her, and for the first time since the confrontation began, she saw relief in his eyes. Scary, probably stupid, brilliant, she corrected. But you could have warned me you were planning to revolutionize galactic mathematics. Jesse laughed. I wasn't planning anything. I just solved the problem the way that made sense to me. He looked back at the examination hall, where Zixither was now surrounded by other instructors, all examining his test paper. That's the thing about being human in a galactic civilization, he said quietly. We're not the strongest, or the smartest, or the longest lived, but we've spent our entire history finding ways to survive anyway. Sometimes that means using the wrong math. Nellie smiled. As long as you remember to right turn the page. Always, Jesse agreed. Always.